seated. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, Mary, for being patient with us. We had a technical issue. Attorneys and I have been here since earlier this morning working, and then I understand you had some traffic issues, so I guess it was just a crazy morning all around. Attorneys tell me we're still well ahead and we're ready to proceed forward. Mr. Brown, please call your next witness.
Thank you. The state will call Patrick Zerpoli.
Mr. Zerpoli, if you come forward, I'll swear you in. You swear or affirm under the laws of the state of Utah and the penalty of perjury that the testimony given in this matter today will be true and correct, so help you God.
I do swear.
Please have a seat up there. I know you've testified before, so just keep my admonitions in mind, please, from the past.
Is there water, Your Honor?
Are we out?
Thank you very much.
May I proceed? Mr. Zerpoli, would you please state your full name?
It's Patrick Zerpoli, and the spelling is Z-I-R-P-O-L-I.
Thank you. And Mr. Zerpoli, would you please, how are you currently employed?
I'm currently self-employed.
In what capacity?
I'm a consultant in basically violent crime homicide. I provide expert testimony, expert case consultation nationally, and I train both nationally and internationally.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your experience that brought you to owning your own business. How'd you start out your career?
Okay, I started my career in 1989 with the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections. I worked for them for about 2.5 years. And then I went into the Pennsylvania State Police, and my focus in the state police was really violent crime and homicide, and I worked in that capacity up until 2015. I was also mentored outside of the state police by experts in the fields of staged crime scenes, equivocal death, criminal behavior, in areas of that nature. And my last duty assignment with the Pennsylvania State Police, I was the supervisor of our Criminal Investigation Assessment Unit, which is the behavior unit for the Pennsylvania State Police. And to best describe the state police, because law enforcement is different in every state, we are the state investigation agency for Pennsylvania. Like, we have a Bureau of Criminal Investigations that handles all major crime within the state, except for in cities like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Scranton, some of our bigger cities, but we handle everything throughout the state.
Okay, thank you. So if I want to make sure I caught that date correct, you started with the Pennsylvania State Police in 1992?
Yeah, it was right around 92.
Okay, and you retired in 2015, you said?
Yes.
Okay. In that amount of time, I think you testified you were primarily violent crimes, homicides, and what was the third thing you said?
Violent crimes, homicides, child abductions, things of that nature.
In that amount of time, so say that 23, is my math right? Roughly 23 years, how many homicides did you say you investigated?
Hundreds, if not more. And I not only worked for the Pennsylvania State Police, but I was also a member of different societies throughout the country where we would review unsolved homicides or active homicides.
Responsive to the question.
I think it's a little verbose. Just please be more direct in your response, sir.
Okay, so you said hundreds,
Yes.
right? You referenced in your experience with staged crime scenes, correct?
Yes.
How many of those homicides would you say, if you could estimate, had staged crime scenes in your opinion?
Upwards of 500, I would say.
Okay. Have you received any sort of particularized or specialized training in staged crime scenes?
Yes, I have.
Have you given any trainings in staged crime scenes?
Yes, I do. I currently do.
Okay. You mentioned in 2015 starting this and doing some expert consulting, correct?
Yes.
Is that part of that consulting?
Yes, it is.
Where have you trained on staged crime scenes?
I have trained all over the country, and I've trained for the American Academy of Forensic Science. I've trained in South America on staged crime scenes. Illinois, Utah, I've trained here multiple times in this state on staged crime scenes. It's part of a program that I have put together, and staged crime scenes is part of that program.
Okay, thank you. When you are looking at a crime scene generally, just kind of speaking not to this case specifically, what sort of information do you consider?
When I look at a crime scene, my view of it is evidence-based, and I kind of look at it, especially at the crime scene itself, I almost look at it like a football field. End zone to end zone, that's the crime scene. And that's what I look at. Any evidence that's at that scene, including verbal statements or written statements that come from people who are at the scene. So that's kind of, I call it white noise. I take everything else and just focus on that.
Okay. What information were you provided in this case?
I was provided, I assume the case file and all of the material with the case file, which included photographs, body cameras, footage, things of that nature. Faro scans were in there. Statements, both recorded statements on body cameras, was also in the case file.
Okay. Did you look at that information in forming an opinion in this case?
I did, yes.
Okay. Let's go through some of that information. If we could please pull up what's already been admitted as States 61, please. And there should be a pointer on the desk in front of you, and if we go to publish 61 when it's up. Thank you. Okay, can you test that pointer, see if it comes up with a red dot on the screen? Excellent. Okay. We're not going to need it for this picture, but what I want to do is go through some of these pictures that were previously introduced but haven't been published to the jury yet. And have you describe what you're looking at in the picture. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, what are we looking at here in States 61?
What you're looking at in this picture is a marker, or we call it a tent, numbered 1, and next to that tent, to the right of that tent, is a shell casing.
Okay. Let's actually... Let's actually do a more zoomed out view. Could you go to States 60 first, please? There we go. Okay, could you describe what we're looking at here?
Okay, what we're looking at here is a living room area of the residence with multiple tents that are marking different pieces of evidence that are in that area.
Okay, and when you say tents, what do you mean?
They're the markers that you see, like number 1 that we just saw, that's what they are, but they're different numbers.
Okay, and in the orientation of the Grist home, what are we looking at?
We're looking towards the front door from kind of the kitchen area. I'd say we just came around the corner from the kitchen and we're looking towards the front door. To orientate this to where the victim was, he was at that hallway just to the top right-hand corner of the photograph, right here where the pointer is. That's the hallway where the victim was located.
This may help us as well. Can we publish States 87? You referenced reviewing a Faro scan, right?
Yes.
Okay, does this appear to be an overview or a fly overview of the Faro scan that you reviewed?
Yes, it is.
Okay, this was previously admitted. If you could use your pointer to show us where that last image was taken from.
Okay, the last image was taken right from this area here, where these tents are.
Okay, and where would the person taking the photo have been standing, if you could just kind of hover the red marker?
Probably right around this corner here, just before the fireplace.
Okay, so to the right of your pointer, that's the fireplace.
Yes, to the right of the pointer is the fireplace, and that's that corner that person would have been standing at to take that photograph.
And on this image, what are the yellow marks?
Again, they're the tents. They're where pieces of evidence are marked in the crime scene.
Okay, thank you. And when you say kitchen area, from your little red marker, which way is the kitchen area?
From the little red mark, the kitchen's off to the right.
Okay, and the front door is where?
The front door is kind of off to the left on an angle.
Perfect, thank you. If we could go back to 60, please. Great. So now this is that zoomed in view that we were just talking about, correct?
Yes.
All right, so now let's go through those tents. We already did 61, but if we can go back to that, please. Yes, please. Okay, what is this first marker?
The first marker is a marker number 1, and again, it's a shell casing to the right side of the marker.
Okay, and then if we can go to 62, please. What are we looking at here?
62 is tent 2 and 3, again with shell casings at both tents.
Okay, 63.
Is number 4, tent number 4 with a shell casing to the left of the tent.
And then 65, please.
It's tent number 6, again with a shell casing to the left of the tent.
Okay, and then 66.
It's tent number 7, again with the shell casing to the left of the tent.
And then 67.
And that's number 8, and with a shell casing to the left of the tent.
Okay, were you all the shell casings that were observed on scene?
Yes.
If we could zoom back out to 60, please. Okay, the marker in the bottom right corner, which marker is that?
That's number 8.
Okay, and that's the one we saw last before we came back to this, correct?
Yes, yes.
Other than 8, do those markers that we're looking at, do those all indicate the shell casing placement?
Yes, they do.
Let's go please to states 68. Okay, what is state 68 showing?
This photograph shows 2 objects. It shows tent number 1 with the shell casing in it in the top left-hand corner, and tent number 2 with a sandal kind of in the center of the picture.
Okay, and then states 69, please.
69 is tent number 11, again with the matching sandal in the center of the picture.
If we could please go to 70. What are we looking at here?
70 is the firearm that was used in this incident. The photograph was taken on the kitchen counter, and it's marked by tent number 12.
And then states 22.
This is the knife that was at the scene, again on the counter, and it's marked by tent number 13.
Then let's go to 70. Well, let's pause there for a second. Well, no, let's do 72, please.
72 is tent number 14, showing a bullet hole in the corner of the wall just to the left of the fireplace.
Okay, just let's do all these bullet holes, and then we're going to pull that Faro scan back up, and I'm going to have you show me on the broader picture. Okay. Then let's do 73, please.
73 is tent number 15, again with a bullet hole in a door.
Okay. 80, please.
80 is marker number 16, again with a bullet hole in the door.
82.
82 is tent number 17, depicting blood running down the wall.
83.
Is number 18, depicting blood on top of a shelf in the hallway.
84.
84 is 19, again depicting blood on a wall.
20. So, I'm sorry, 85.
Is tent number 20, again depicting blood on the corner of a wall.
Just right below.
Just below 19, I
19.
believe it is, yes.
Okay. If we could please do 76.
'76 is marked with number 2, and it is actually a bullet slug that's underneath these plugs.
Okay, could you just point to that with the pointers a little bit so it's clear?
The slug is right there.
You've referenced slugs and casings. Could you please describe what's the difference?
If we put them back together, it's a bullet. So when you fire a bullet, the slug comes out of the bullet, and the casing is what actually holds it in place, and that's ejected from the firearm.
If we could go to 77, please.
Again, 77 is marked with number 3, and it's another slug that came from what's depicted on the floor with blood around it.
Okay. 74, please.
'74 is, again, marked with number 1 with a bullet hole through a wall.
80.
80 is marked with number 16 with a bullet hole through a door.
And 81, please.
That is not marked with anything. There's some photographs on the wall, but there's a bullet hole in the center right above the pointer, right next to the pointer.
Okay, do you know the relation of 80, 81, and 74?
I believe that's the same bullet that passed through that goes into the next door neighbor's garage.
And do you remember where that was found?
It was found in a bag in their garage area.
In the neighbor's garage?
Yes, in the neighbor's garage, yes.
Thank you. If we could then go back to that Faro scan, and we're going to go through just briefly, those bullet hole locations. I think it was 86. No, actually, no, this one, 87 is fine, but can we zoom in on the 88 then? Excellent. Okay, slightly different orientation, but with this, could you please show us which of the markers are denoting bullet holes?
Okay, so in this scan here,
Just using that red marker, and we can zoom in if you'd like.
this here in the bottom of that door, just below that red mark, is a bullet hole. There's a bullet hole right here on the corner of that wall, just underneath the red marker.
And sorry, if you go back to that first bullet hole, do you remember where that slug was found?
That's the slug that was found underneath those cords in that office area.
Excellent, thank you. And then you referenced the one on the corner there of the fireplace.
There's the corner one here.
Okay.
And that's that bullet hole into the wall.
Okay.
And then we have the bullet holes on the door, again, that correspond just above the red mark, that correspond with going through the wall, going into the neighbor's garage.
Great, thank you. When you're evaluating a crime scene, we can take that down. What is an artifact?
Definition of an artifact is something that's brought to the crime scene that's not part of the crime scene. So for example, if someone brings their DNA, if an officer leaves a glove laying there, if an officer leaves a boot print there, it's artifact to the actual crime scene itself. It's not part of the crime scene. And that's the definition of what an artifact is.
And were artifacts observed in this crime scene?
They were, yes.
We could show the witness 68, 69 again, please. We'll just do 68. Actually, I'm sorry, 69 would be better. Okay, and if you compare this in, please, to states 49. You've seen this body cam footage, correct?
I have, yes.
And could you describe the location of the sandals?
If you look at the body camera footage, the sandals are inside the door, just inside the entryway of the door, just past where the door is. That's where they originate at.
Okay, and then 69, which we don't need to show it again, but could you describe where the sandal is at that point?
At that point in the photograph, the sandal's outside the door. So at some point, that sandal's kicked outside the doorway.
And is that consistent with an artifact?
Yes, that's consistent with an artifact.
Okay. If I could also show you 83, please. Did you also learn whether this was an artifact or not?
Yes.
And how was that an artifact?
This blood originally was thought to be from the victim himself as he was falling down in the hallway, but it comes to find out that an EMT had actually touched the wall after they were performing rescue saving measures on the victim. So the EMT gets up and actually touches that area of the wall and transfers blood onto there, and it becomes an artifact of the actual case.
So that artifact 83, was that learned after your original report?
Yes, it was.
Does it change the conclusion that you reach in your original report?
No.
Can we go back to uh, 70, please? What kind of gun is this?
I believe it's a 6 hour. I forget what model number it is. P something. I forget the actual model number.
Did you do analysis about how this particular gun ejects shell casings?
Yes.
Why is that a valuable tool for you in your analysis of the crime scene?
If you look at a firearm and you know the ejection pattern of the firearm, then you're able to then orientate the shooter to where the casings are located. So we can almost put the shooter back in the area where he was at just by the ejection pattern of that firearm.
What is the ejection pattern of the 6 hour?
The ejection pattern of this is to the rear and between 3 and 4 o'clock, meaning this. If I held a gun in my hand, this is the barrel, this is the back of the slide. If I put a clock on top of there and 12 o'clock was forward, then 3 o'clock would be immediately to the right, and then 4 o'clock would be just a little bit behind that. So that's how the shell casings eject from the firearm.
Okay. And if we could put 88 back up, please. Yes, the Farrell overview. Thank you. Based on that, where did you draw a conclusion about where the shooter was in this case?
I did, yes.
Could you please use the pointer to demonstrate where?
In this area right here at the end of this tan couch.
Okay. Could you just tighten that up a little bit more? It looks like it was moving quite a bit. Okay.
Right in that area there.
Because are those yellow markers, are those silver tents denoting the shell casings that you described earlier?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Did you evaluate, along with the body cams, the statements, the Faro scans that you talked about earlier, did you also evaluate the medical examiner's report?
I did, yes.
Did you use that in forming any of your conclusions?
I did, yes.
Is that a typical thing for you to do in your field?
Yes, it is, because you're taking, you have the injuries, so you can use those injuries, documented injuries, especially in gunshot wounds, exits, and entrance wounds, to be able to orientate the victim to where they were at in the crime scene.
Okay. Can we please put up states 44? Sorry, states 94. Was this the body diagram that you reviewed?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and medical examiners already talked about these, but would you please denote which of these injuries were entrances and which ones were exits?
The entrances are marked on her, they're dots, but they're marked with different letters. If you see here, like A, B, C, E, I, G, H are all entrance wounds, and there's only 2 gunshot exit wounds that are marked with an X. They're on the front hip area here, and then there's one here in the wrist.
What about the one above the F?
And then one right here above the abdomen is also an X.
Okay, so 3.
Right, yes.
Okay. Did you review her findings regarding direction or any sort of injuries based on what she could learn from these entry and exit wounds?
Yes.
Did you form any conclusions about the victim's position in relation to the shooter when those injuries occurred?
Yes.
And what was your what conclusions did you reach?
The conclusion I reached is the original gunshot wounds were face to face when the original gunshot wounds happen, and then the victim turns, and that's when you get those gunshot wounds in the back, including the one in the wrist that comes from the rear and exits in the front.
Can we show, when we show you a picture of the victim's final resting place, stage 44, please? When you look at this photo, what does his positioning in relation to the room around him tell you?
He falls directly down into this position here. That's why he begins forward and then he turns into the hallway, and this is where he falls immediately down.
Let's go back to 88, please. Okay. On this image, 88, a black box has been denoted for the victim's body. Using that, could you please describe what, if anything, you learned about the victim's location at the time of the shooting? At the time of the shooting, the victim himself had to have been started in this area here, where that red dot is, because the injury to his forearm corresponds with this bullet hole that is in the wall here, because that's an entrance and an exit wound, and there's a bullet recovered from there. So he's in this, it starts in this area here and turns to go down the hallway, and that's when he's shot from the rear and falls down. Okay, thank you. If I could show you stage 44 again, please. You talked about your experience with crime scene staging. Did you make any conclusions based on your review of the evidence about crime scene staging in this case?
Yes.
So stage 44 is back in front of you. When you look at this in regards to the topic of crime scene staging, what do you observe?
From the topic of crime scene staging itself, when you look at the body, this is his final rest. Once he is shot from the rear, he falls into this position. You see no other movement of him. But what jumps out as far as the staging of him being moved post-mortem is you see blood stains here where his arm is moved multiple times.
Is your pointer not working anymore?
No, it stopped working.
Okay, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. If you could just describe on the picture what you're referring to when you say bloodstains.
Okay, so if we look at the victim in this picture here, just above his right shoulder, you'll see it's more concentrated than the other stains that you're going to see. You'll see a blood stain there. That's final rest. That's where he falls down, and that's where his wrist is bleeding and leaves that blood stain there. And then as you move out further, just above that, you see a lighter stain of blood. So when we look at blood stains need a source. So something has to be bleeding to leave that blood there. And the only source that we can have in this crime scene above his chest area is his forearm. So those stains have to come from his forearm. So his forearm is being manipulated, being lifted and put back down again. If he was dragging his forearm, those stains would look completely different. You'd see kind of drag marks across the carpet in blood versus it just being a stain where it's put straight down in blood.
Okay, may I approach the screen over there just so I can point to? Testing. Just want to make sure we're clear. You described the initial blood stain. Is this one you're talking about?
Yes.
Right shoulder.
I'm gonna have to, please look with.
Yeah, you want to come on over.
Your pointer's not working, right?
No, it was.
There's another one there, Mr.
Oh, wait, looks like we got a cursor back.
Yeah, I got a cursor back on it.
We'll use the, can we see if the cursor works?
Here. This is just a regular pointer. So I have the, oh, there, now it's back again.
That first,
So there, it's just above here. This is right to the right, or to the left of that red dot. That's that initial blood stain that we talked about.
okay, and the second one you talked about?
The second one is right here.
Can we pull up that body diagram, States 94, please? Please. And you test, were there any injuries observed on this above G?
No, no, there's no injury above G on this body diagram.
So in your opinion, what was the only source, possible source of that blood stain by the victim's shoulder?
The only possible source is from the wrist, is from when he was shot through the wrist.
I'm going to show you States 45, which is after the body is moved by medical personnel. Okay. Why is this picture relevant?
The picture is relevant for multiple reasons. Again, this is, this stain that we see here is that blood stain we're seeing outside of, from the top by his shoulder. Here's that second stain that we were seeing here. But what's really important here, this is final rest of his arm right here, and there's no blood there at all.
Could we go back to 44? So when you say final rest, could you circle where final rest is on this image?
Final rest is, where his arm is put at final rest is right here.
And based on 45, was there any blood on the carpet under that location?
No.
What does that indicate to you?
It indicates that overall, his arm was left here for a period of time, the highest saturation of blood. It's moved once. It's left there for a short period of time, and then it's moved to final rest, and there's indication of no blood there whatsoever.
Are there any other concerns that you have just solely on the forensic evidence in front of you about the placement of the knife?
Yes, the orientation of the knife concerns me. And it concerns me more if we put his arm back into where he initially fell down. The knife is turned blade in. He should have stabbed himself. He's holding the knife with the blade towards himself versus the blade out, which it's opposite in his hand. And if he fell where we see his arm come to rest, when he first falls down, that blade would have stabbed him at some point, or should have stabbed him here. But again, just the how it's held in his hand is concerning, and it does, and it tells me that it's put there post-mortem after he's deceased and after he stops bleeding. That is placed in his hand.
Is there any other indicators that it was placed in his hand? Well, let me ask it this way. You're familiar with the injury to the wrist, correct?
Yes.
Does that cause you any concern regarding the placement of the knife?
It does, because I've seen crime scenes before, and they're not just staged crime scenes. I've seen crime scenes where people have been shot before and holding something, and they immediately drop that object. They're shot in similar locations there. So being able to hold that through this whole thing happening and being shot 7 times, that concerns me that he's still holding the knife.
Are you aware how long between the neighbor reporting shots and Miss Grist calling 911? Are you aware how much time passed?
I know it's documented in my report. I think it's somewhere between 8 and 9 minutes. I think that was the time frame, and I think that comes from timing on different video surveillance and things of that nature. But I think that was the kind of the range of the time.
Does that passage of time between the report of shots and Tracey calling 911, does that factor into your opinion at all about the staging of the crime scene?
It does, yes.
How so?
Because that's the time to stage the crime scene. That's the time to figure out how you're going to make this look like something it wasn't.
Okay. 1 second. Yeah, I'll pass the witness, and we can take that down, please.
Thank you. Cross.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. Zerpoli.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, excellent, perfect.
It's the hardest part, right?
That was the hardest part.
All right. So, one moment. I don't know what number the picture is. Two Sandy's together. You're no longer a police officer, right?
No,
So I won't call you detective. I'll just call you Mr. Zerpoli, if that's okay.
that's fine.
Mr. Zerpoli, you've had an opportunity to obviously go through the crime scene as you've demonstrated in your testimony today. And I have a question. If we can look at picture number 49, exhibit 49. In exhibit 49, do you know where this picture comes from?
It comes from a body cam. I'm looking at it up in the top right corner, where Axon Body Cam 3.
Right, and so this wasn't taken as a still shot, it's just taken as a screenshot from a body cam, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and this, and you've reviewed the body cam, right?
Yes,
And this is really a demonstration of the first moments of officers walking into the home. Is that accurate?
that is accurate, yes.
And when you look at this picture, you can see a left and a right sandal, correct?
Yes,
And you can see an entryway, correct?
yes,
And then you can see tile.
yes,
You see the tile? And then you can see the carpet.
yes,
And so because this is body cam, this is really pretty instantaneous on when law enforcement gets there, right?
yes,
But as you stated, a few minutes after 911 was called.
yes,
Or I'm sorry, I phrased that wrong. I'm sorry, I apologize. A few minutes after the shooting took place.
this body cam, yes.
Yeah,
These are for initial arriving officers, I believe.
right. So we had the time of shooting, which is not an exact known, but it's pretty close, right? A time of shooting.
Yes,
Then you have a time of 911 calls.
yes,
And then we have a time of law enforcement arrival.
yes,
Right. And this shot is time of law enforcement arrival.
yes,
And so, in this shot, this is, according to all that you've reviewed, a first view into the home. Is that right?
that is, yes.
So if this was not a crime scene, and if this was just, hey, I'm buying a home, this would be your first view into the home when you open the front door.
Yes,
Yeah. And the first thing you see is you see a fireplace, you see a nice rug, and you see a wall in front of you, right?
yes,
And so the natural part of this house is to invite you into this fireplace room. I'll call it a living room. Is that okay? Does that make sense?
yeah,
Would you agree with that? When your first arrival is there, you're sort of greeting yourself into the living room.
yes,
Now, to the left of that fireplace, the wall takes a cut to the left. Is that accurate to your recollection?
it is, yes.
And then there's a hallway leading to the stairs where Matt's body was lying. Is that your recollection?
Yes,
And so you've reviewed the interviews of my client, Tracey Grist. You reviewed the interviews of Kevin at the scene, or not at the scene, but at the police station right after, right?
yes,
And my client states, Tracey states, that Matt came and she was sitting at the counter. Do you remember reviewing that as part of your preparation for this report?
yes.
And you can't actually see the counter from this picture, can you?
No, you cannot.
And if we go to the Faro 88, I think, there's a few different ones, but 88 is a good one. You can see how the door opens, and can you do a pointer of the door? Front door.
The front door is here. right there.
Right. And can you do a pointer of the kitchen counter?
The kitchen counter is back over here.
And in the middle, in between these, is a big triangle of empty space. Is that right? Coming toward the door from the counter.
Here. I'm trying to.
I'm going to point it out. This triangle of space.
Yes. From the scan, it's empty, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's nothing there.
Do you know why it's a triangle?
It's a divider between the hallway, the living room, and the kitchen.
It is. And right here, and I'm pointing to the picture, is the fireplace, right?
Yes,
And that's an inset fireplace, right?
I believe so, yes.
And so there's some backing to the fireplace that people don't see because it's ugly, and we only want to see the pretty part of the fireplace, right?
Yes,
And so this triangle space covers the ugly part of the fireplace behind the wall, and it just shows the pretty part of the fireplace. Is that accurate?
that's correct, yes.
And because of that triangle space, you actually can't see the front door from that kitchen counter, can you?
No,
Because the triangle wall is in the way.
yes.
If we can bring exhibit number 47. Exhibit number 47, what do you see in this picture?
I see it's taken from within the living room, looking towards the front door. There's a blanket on the tan couch there on the corner with some pillows, and then there's two, I assume they're EMTs, off to the right of the picture.
Do you know how many people entered into this house as part of this night's investigation?
I do not know.
But we see from this picture, there's at least two, right?
Yes,
We also have seen from body cam that there was at least a couple other officers that we saw on body cam, right? Who came from their individual body cam into that residence. You recall that, don't you?
yes,
And so we also had Kevin in the house, is that right?
yes.
And where was Kevin standing approximately when the first law enforcement came into the residence? Do you remember?
He was standing in the living room area, so almost, I'd say close to where this picture's taken, but maybe a little bit more into the living room.
Yeah.
And this would be his view.
His head was down and his hands were sort of up, and he's to the right, when you open the front door, to the right of the front door. Is that
Yes.
your recollection?
Yes,
Now, you described the word artifact.
yes.
And as I understand artifact, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, you know, I'm just trying my best, but is an artifact a piece of evidence that has been moved?
That could be artifact too, by definition, yes.
So in this photo, number 47, we have the two sandals there, don't we?
Yes,
And at that point in time, we know that Tracey and Kate and Kevin are already out of the house at this point, don't we?
yes.
And so when that sandal moved, and if we can go now to exhibit number 68. When that sandal moved, did that sandal become an artifact?
This sandal, I don't believe moved, it's the other sandal that moves.
Okay. So you see this sandal, and it's completely on carpet, right?
Yes,
Now, if we can go back to exhibit number 49. Do you see how both sandals are on the tile right there?
they are. So both sandals were moved from their original location, yes.
Yeah, both sandals were moved. And they're moved, maybe not intentionally, but they're just moved as part of the, and Mr. Pole, let's be honest, part of the craziness that's going on in the house with a dead man there. Isn't that true? There's a lot of people trying to help the situation. This sandal wasn't moved intentionally, do you think?
No,
No. But there was a lot of things going on to try to assist his life and to try to help the deceased.
yes,
I guess the same could be said about, and if we could go to the ferrule. The flags that are all on the carpet. Some of these casings, and I'm specifically talking about the rug area. Some of these casings could have been moved through kicking, just like the sandal could have been moved. Isn't that right?
They could have, yes.
Yeah. And so when we do an investigation, and I'm not going to say we because it's not me, but when law enforcement does an investigation, they do it to the best of their ability to flag out evidence. Isn't that right?
Yes.
But their first responsibility on entering is to protect someone, isn't it?
It is, yes.
And so their first duty is to provide assistance and protection, and their second duty is to then investigate. Would that be a fair assumption of law enforcement's responsibility?
Yes.
And so with these flags that have casings and things of that nature, they aren't exactly perfect of where the shell falling out could have been. Indeed, we really don't know unless we had a video showing where the shooter was standing. Isn't that accurate?
No.
Okay, and explain to me how you can come up with that and that none of these casings had been moved like the sandal had been moved.
I didn't say none of the casings, but you have to take everything into consideration, trajectory of bullets, where the bullet holes are corresponding to the injuries in the body. So once we start putting all of that together, you can then kind of put the victim back in his position. And if you can put the victim back in his position, you can then put the shooter back in his position, which corresponds to these casings.
Okay. And so I think one of your statements today is that the flag, I'm just going to refer to them flags, okay? The flag on the corner wall, just southwest of the fireplace on that wall, do you see what I'm referring to?
Yes.
In your opinion, that's an indicator of where the deceased was approximately based on that bullet hole in that wall. Is that right?
Yes.
And can you explain the blood that was above the vent, you know, the line of blood? Can you explain how that got there?
No.
Do you know whether or not Matt moved after he fell down?
From his body position, my answer would be no, he did not move.
And is that because of the blood markings by his head and a bit above his head?
And the other blood markings under his body, yes.
Do you know if there were life-saving attempts of Matt made before law enforcement got there?
There's no indication that there were, no.
And do you know whether or not there were any life-saving measures that produced any pulse or any life of Matt?
No, none that I know.
It's your understanding that he was dead when law enforcement arrived?
Yes.
And with these casings, and some could have been moved and some could have not been moved, I guess we agree on that, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
You can come to an approximate area of where the shooter is, but it's not an exact location, but approximate, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And what's the bubble of approximation, do you think?
I think the bubble of approximation is right in this area at the end of the couch. I think the bubble is...
Can you do that with...
If this thing works again. I think the bubble is in this immediate area right here, right by this end of this couch here. which corresponds with the bullet holes in the doors, the bullet holes in the walls. And it moves around the corner as this is occurring. As he's going down the hallway, the shooter's also moving at the same time.
Moving toward the couch?
Moving away from the couch, moving towards the door. Because when you start looking at trajectories of bullets, these are forward into this wall, into this door here. So it goes straight through the door, straight through the wall, straight into the neighbor's garage. So you have him then making a turn, the victim making a turn down the hallway. And that's when you get this corner shot here into this, into the corner of that wall. It's not straight into the wall, it's almost into the corner of the wall.
Yeah. You were a police officer for how long?
23 years with the state police.
Okay. And so as a police officer, you were trained in many different ways, is that right?
Yes, I was.
And in your training, you were trained in firearms. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
When you are trained as an officer in firearms, are you trained on when finally having that dreadful day of discharging your weapon, are you trained to discharge one bullet, or what is your training in regards to that?
You shoot to stop the movement. That is our training.
And is there ever advice about, or training about not shooting just one bullet and shooting many?
In law enforcement, no, there's not training just to shoot one bullet.
Yeah, indeed, it's the opposite. It's to shoot as many as it takes to stop the moving object. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yes.
And why do they have to train that, do you think?
Train in that nature becomes muscle memory. That's why we train that way.
And are you trained in that way because the layman maybe doesn't have that understanding?
I would say yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Redirect.
Just one line follow-ups. You were asked about the possibility of the shell casings being disturbed on scene after EMS arrives, correct?
Yes,
And you acknowledge that that is a possibility.
it is a possibility, yes.
Were the shell casings the only piece of evidence that you used to determine the likely position of Mr. Ellis when he was shooting?
No.
What were the others?
The entrance and exit wounds on the body itself from the autopsy, plus the entrance wounds and exit wounds into walls and where bullets were recovered. Once you can kind of put all that together, and more importantly, the trajectory of bullets, like how the bullets are passing through the body, you can then use all that information to put them, or put the shooter where he is at the time.
Is it fair to say it's like a math problem where you add all the pieces together?
It is, yes. You cannot look at just one thing. You look at all of it, the totality of the circumstances, then tells you where people are at that time.
And finally, does anything about the possibility of a shell casing being disturbed, the possibility of that, does any of that change your opinion on the placement of the knife post-mortem?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Recross.
No, Your Honor.
This witness be released?
Only you may step down, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.